Okay, we're at 3 after. I want to get going. Today, welcome to our workshop. We want to talk about managing technology obsolescence. Application portfolio management in ServiceNow provides a facility, and we've actually had this feature for quite some time. We call it technology portfolio management. We have a new version of it that came out in our May store release. And we're going to talk about what it does, how it works, but the concepts that we're covering today and some of the information, it relates to the original version as well. We want to make sure that you're well prepared to start your program for what some customers call software currency, technology currency, or obsolescence management. We may, at some points in the presentation, talk about new features. So we have to give you a safe harbor, forward-looking statement. Some of the features we're planning, they're in the backlog. We may develop them, but we don't guarantee. Things change, as everybody knows. So, we want to share our best knowledge of where we're going with it. But of course, until it's released, we can't make any guarantees on it. A little bit of housekeeping. We'll have time for Q&A after the presentation, but we ask that you use the Q&A feature to ask your questions. Chat, it doesn't get captured right. We want to make sure it goes into Q&A. We actually have a team of some of my peers, Molly, Scott, Tony, are all on with us, and they'll be behind the scenes trying to answer your questions. And some of the questions will get bubbled up to us in the end when we do Q&A. We're going to record and share this on the community. And after the session, there will be a short survey. We'd really appreciate your feedback for it. So my name's Mark Casto. I'm a Principal Product Success Manager for the Strategic Portfolio Management product suite. That includes application portfolio management. I've been in the enterprise architecture application portfolio game for quite a few years, started in the very early 2000s and made my way to ServiceNow, where I think APM belongs. And I'm happy to be here today to share my experience with you. Our objectives today is to give you insights on how to get your technology currency, your obsolescence program up and running using APM and technology portfolio management. It begins where you are. You need an application inventory. Part of it, let's say the automation of it, the power of the platform comes into play. You've got to have certain things in place. You've got to have alignment of your application services. We'll talk about what all this means. You've got to have discovery or some equivalent running. You've got to have some equivalent of software asset management running and hardware asset management. We'll show you how all of that works today so that you can build your roadmap. That's what we're aiming for. It may be more than you can do now, but we want to make sure that you've got a pathway to get to this really powerful feature. So our agenda, let's talk about APM's technology portfolio management, past and present, how to evaluate your system for TPM discovery success. That's that automation part that I was discussing. And what if you don't have SAM Pro? What can you do? Are you out of the game? It is more difficult. Absolutely. I don't want to sugarcoat it, but there's a possibility. We talk about what that is, what's in the future for TPM. We'll talk about that, and then we'll have Q&A. So we want to start with a quick survey because we'd really love to get some feedback, if you would, on how are you doing technology currency, software currency now? Have you started? Do you have a program? And we'll give 3 or 4 minutes for the survey here. Looks like the majority of us are just beginning, and we'll share the poll here in a moment. Okay, give another 30 seconds. We've got a few more who haven't responded. If you feel like it, please let us know how you're doing it, or if you're just beginning, you haven't started on such a program. And as a explanation which might help, what we call technology currency or obsolescence, it's the practice of first understanding what technologies you have in use by your enterprise systems, and then evaluating those technologies against the manufacturer or the software publishers published support life cycles. Short of it is, you don't want to have out-of-date technology running in your environment. It's a risk. It's a risk for multiple reasons. No support. It's a risk that there may be vulnerabilities exposed, all kinds of things like that. So I think we're good enough. We can end the poll. We're sharing the results. We see, most of everybody joining us today, you're just beginning, you haven't started. That's fantastic. And thank you for being here. We hope that we can provide something useful for you today so that you can go forward with it. We have 4 that are using ServiceNow's TPM already. That's fantastic. And thank you. We have others using other tools, and then some have built their own system. So hopefully we can show you how ServiceNow TPM does it today and add to your tool set. So technology portfolio management are key concepts. First, and even before this, is you have to establish a inventory of your applications. So the assumption was that you would understand this, but I want to state that this is about aligning technology to your business application, to use the ServiceNow CSDM terms. Business applications are those enterprise systems that you use to make your organization run. What we do is, once you've established your application inventory, is we establish a technology bill of materials, if you will. What technologies do your applications use? And we've got multiple ways we're going to review today on how you can do that. We use a catalog of software and hardware technologies. If you have the products from ServiceNow, for example, you would have the software asset management software product catalog, the content library, we call it. Same thing for the hardware. And we use the publisher and manufacturer life cycles to give us those support life cycles. We provide means to create an action, and I call it a business case. In ServiceNow terms, it's actually a demand to address the obsolescence and the technical debts. The short of it is, you have your enterprise systems, you align them to the technologies that they're being used, you evaluate them and monitor them against end of life, end of extended support, into support events, the dates, and hopefully proactively you create demands representing projects, change, or whatever it's going to take to do the upgrades or address that obsolescence, so you're not running systems with obsolete technology. From a CSDM point of view, these are the key elements that we have here. And if we look at it, the core of APM is the business application right here. Business applications are aligned to their deployed instances. So this is just standard CSDM terminology. This is a deployment of the business application. We call it an application service. An application service does all kinds of brilliant things for us. It aligns us to the delivery end of the world, the services and service offerings. It aligns us to the technical teams that are delivering infrastructure and building and supporting the application. And most importantly, it aligns us to the infrastructure that makes up this particular application. Even if you have a SaaS application, you will want to have an application service. What TPM is doing is we use the product model, and also not listed in CSDM, the product representation of products in ServiceNow to associate a nice normalized list of technologies. So down here in discovery, when we find software on a server, we're going to read the registry if it's Windows, or the package manager information on Linux, Unix systems. That is going to be rather raw and really difficult to interpret. By using normalization, we get a list of technologies in a form that we can understand and work with. So one of the key things, the original TPM uses software models. Our new TPM, because there are some concepts with software models that frankly were causing problems around life cycles, obtaining life cycles, actually representing the version, the new TPM is taking a new approach. We'll look at that in a moment. Whether you're using SAM Pro or not, TPM can be used. SAM Pro plus discovery plus service mapping leads to a means where you can get automation. So when we talk about TPM, quite often, people will think, hey, I have to have all of these things. And it's great if you do. We certainly want you to have that, because we want you to have the power of automation. That's what really makes this stuff happen. But that is not the only way that you can do it. You can actually do it manually. You can create integrations. If you're doing your software asset management with another vendor, you can create the proper integrations, and we're going to talk about it today, what you have to integrate to make things happen. So the full automation story, how does this thing work when we're talking about full automation? We have discovery. Discovery, for those that aren't familiar, just real quick, that is our facility within ServiceNow that is used to populate the CMDB. Discovery is scanning your data center, your cloud accounts, looking for infrastructure. We call it horizontal because it finds everything that it is able to identify, and identifies as a router, a server, whatever, and it stores in the CMDB for use with multiple processes, all of the ITSM processes such as incident, problem, change, etc. So discovery finds the CIs, in particular the servers. That's what we really care about. Up here in the APM world, APM establishes that business application inventory and the alignment of application services, those instances or deployments of the application that we talked about. Service mapping is the act, the process of aligning that application service to the infrastructure, the technology bits that are running to make it happen. What makes this thing run? It has these 10 servers and these databases and load balancers, et cetera. That service mapping provides us that alignment. One thing that is crucial, there is the traditional top-down discovery-based, it uses discovery patterns, discovery-based service map. It's fantastic. It's incredibly powerful. Also extremely difficult. There are a half dozen other methodologies that can be used for service mapping. And I don't want to spend too much time about it today. Well, there's other sessions in the ITOM group that are presented on service mapping, but just a few calculated services. It will use your CI relationships, tag-based services. If you're doing a lot of cloud discovery, you can add tags to identify where a particular infrastructure piece aligns. So there's multiple methods by which service mapping itself can happen. If you have SAM Pro and HAM Pro, what happens, SAM and HAM work with discovery. There is a point within discovery called software discovery. It peels the onion, if you will. So you find something, it's a server. What kind of server? Oh, it's a Windows server. Okay, we look at the registry. What software is installed? There's not just the registry, there are file-based patterns and other mechanisms by which the software installed. The point is we find the software that's installed and we normalize it into something we call the software discovery model. Hardware asset management is actually much more simpler. We look at the reported hardware information and we align it directly to a hardware model. If you look on a server CI element in the server table, you'll see it has something called model ID. That's going to be associated to its hardware model. What kind of server is it? Is it a compact, a Dell? Is it, what is it? Is it some sort of VMware for virtual service? So once we've done this normalization into software discovery models, TPM and the TPM Technology Portfolio Management discovery job will come in, uses this information to align the discovered software and its hardware, and we, via service mapping, we align it to the application services. Conceptually, it's pretty simple. There is a lot to it, but it does have a simple premise in how things work. And it makes great sense. Can it discover everything? No, because discovery and SAM normalization don't find everything. If you have home or in-house built modules, SaaS, these kinds of things will be, are not discoverable by this mechanism, but we do have means to accommodate those. So we don't leave them out. It's just they have to be handled by a separate process. And then I include here SPM. You create demands and projects to drive the actions for remediation. That's the APM way of taking action. You find something wrong, create a demand to take care of it. So why a new TPM? Over the past couple of years, we've been working with quite a few customers as they started to take on TPM. And we found some issues, we found some areas where we can improve things. So we are by no means done, but we are working on improving things. We wanted to introduce full automation. Ideally, this thing should be able to run in the background, just take care of it. And it won't take care of everything, as I mentioned, but what if it could take care of 80% of your technology alignment? And while it's doing that, bring in the support life cycles, show me where I have risks. That's what we're trying to get to, is let this thing go out there and show me software obsolescence risk with a click of a button. And we want to improve performance. Not only do we want to reduce the manual inputs, but we want to improve the performance of the whole thing. We want to provide an audit capability. Life cycle determination, anybody that's dealt with this, Life cycles from the manufacturers it's insane. They're all versions are expressed differently. The manufacturers have no consistent way of publishing anything. It's created a market for ServiceNow and our content library and some other guys that are out there doing a similar thing. And but it's hugely difficult to obtain and curate this information. That's why ServiceNow content library and SAM Pro is so popular. So, but yeah, even with a good program, it's almost impossible to capture everything. You're going to find products, technologies that are not in the list. You're going to find versions that are not yet in the list or have been missed or they just don't line up for some reason. So what we have is an audit capability. So when we can't find an exact match, what we're going to try to do is find the best match that we can, and we're going to tell you about it. And you can evaluate it, you can reject it, you can approve it, that kind of thing. We'll show you how that works. Finally, we're the APM's EA workspace. That's where all of our new experience is going. So it made great sense that we'll put this into the EA workspace. So what are the differences between the old and the new, and can I still use the original? First, what are the differences? We no longer use software models. To be blunt, software models allow versionless software models. There's no version specified, maybe not even an edition. And that makes it very difficult to determine which life cycles to pick. There is a mechanism that you can use, but even that has proven problematic. So we're trying to get away from that and taking a step back in the layers, if you will, and hopefully we'll be able to show you what I mean by layers. We step back to the software discovery model, which is that normalized record of what was found, and we use that. So as I say, we stop at the software discovery model rather than picking up a software model. The old TPM, the original, it actually went to the discovery model and found a software model, and that's what it connected. We're just doing a little bit different. Lifecycle dates are cached. In the original TPM, one of the issues we found that caused performance problems is that when you go to render that portal, that shows you the nice Gantt view of the life cycles, it was querying for those life cycles in real time as it tried to render. Huge performance hit. And so what we're doing is we go out and find those life cycle dates and capture them. That means you can't go put custom support dates in your phases, custom support phases. You have to work with what we have, but we cover it. We have general availability, we have end of support, end of extended support, and end of life. That is the industry standard. Stay with it. We have other means for other expressions. If you have internal usage life cycles, we'll talk about a product called Technology Reference Model in another session. That's where those life cycles belong. So we use the association to software product, but we don't do software models. So it's a key difference. Software product, as it sounds, it represents the product. I can have the product Microsoft SQL Server. There's 100 different versions of it. So then we go to what specific version, but we use the product and it supports alignment with that technology reference model module that we'll talk about in another session. We also keep the server installation information. One of the downfalls of the original TPM, we got the server information as part of the analysis, and then we threw it away at the end of the analysis. So when you look at a particular software title or a hardware type model and it's end of life, what server was it? Oh, I don't know. You have to go back and dig around and find it. We keep it now. So you can take action and you know exactly where you need to go if you're working on it at the server level. One thing we're doing at the moment is we associate everything. So previously, the way we work is we create a list of suggestions, and then as the IT owner or maybe the lead developer or the architect of the application, they would be responsible for going in and picking the right technologies and associating them. What we found from the customers we work with is it is preferable to grab everything and then let that SME or the IT owner go in and remove the things that don't belong. That way, it's better to have a list that has everything and too much than a list that has nothing. That was the basis of that decision. So right now, new TPM is really directed towards SAM customers. We're working on improving that. So if you don't have SAM Pro and all that, you're probably going to want to wait a little bit for using the new TPM, but the old TPM is there. We're talking about it today. We're setting you up to be successful for both of them. The other thing, we don't recognize CI relationships. The old one did, but we no longer use CI relationships. CSDM and the principles around it, service mapping and the methodologies for service mapping have advanced far enough in the last 4 or 5 years that we hope that all customers have moved or are moving to creating real application services, not things in the business service table, CMDB, CI service, but application service. And they have some form of mapping. This is how the best features of ServiceNow, and it's not just for TPM. There are facilities and incident problem change regarding impacted services, impacted business applications. We depend upon these facilities, and service mapping of some form needs to be in place for those things to work. You're going to see more and more of this. So I strongly advise you, if you haven't, do move towards using some form of application services with a proper service mapping methodology. Now, can you still use the original? Yes, indeed. It's still out there. It's not going anywhere, at least not for a while. There will be a day when it does become deprecated, but there will no longer be improvements on it. It's pretty much going to stay where it is. We have to support it, of course, but there's not going to be new features in it. The original TPM and the original portal-based APM home, they're still out there and they're not going anywhere. So the data model, what makes this thing happen? Let's look at it. So starts with a business application. We talked about application service. This table is critical. That's what I was just talking about. Service CI association. When you do service mapping on an application service, this table, and let me get a pin loaded here so we can see. This table here, service CI associations, gets populated with everything that's made up part of the mapping, servers, databases, whatever it is, depending upon how you do your mapping, that gets associated in this table. As I said, multiple facilities throughout the system. Originally, this was used part of event management, but now it's used in instant problem change to understand impacts. And of course, we use it here. So this is how we find the servers. On those servers, we have software installations. The software installations get normalized into software discovery models. The TPM evaluation engine, what it's doing is it goes out for each business application. It gets the application services. It gets the servers out of the CI association for each software installation. It gets the discovered model, and it creates these records, which reference software product and the versions. So the original semi-automated data model, very much similar. Here's your application service. There's that CI association table, but also we use CI relationships. So we would go down either path depending upon certain contexts. If your application service, just to be specific about it, if your application service is a mapped application service, it is going to use the TPM discovery is going to use this table, service CI association. If it is not a map, if it's calculated, if it's anything else, it's going to use the CI relationships table. That's just the way it was designed and the way it worked. In the end, it's finding servers, again, software installation, software discovery models, and we would call an API in SAM to find a list of suggested software models. The user, the IT owner or whatever, will add them to the list. So this list is how we associate software models. And then there is a query-based relationship to the life cycles. There is no direct relationship anywhere to these life cycles, even with the new. It's just the way asset management and that data model works. So and speaking of that, how are software publisher life cycles determined? So real quick, hardware models are real easy and hardware life cycles are real easy. The life cycles are associated directly to the hardware model. So you have hardware model life cycles. That's where they show up. That's easy. Software, not so easy. What we have to do with software life cycles is we have to take the publisher, the software product, the version, and potentially the full version and the edition, and we use those elements to try to find a valid life cycle that represents what's been installed. Both the original and new TPM use a software asset management API that incorporates a heuristic algorithm. And really what it's working with is this full version. So full version might be that dotted build number that you get when you do discovery. So it can use that full version to try to find a correct life cycle. For example, you might have SQL Server version 13.2.0.165.20. That's a build number. It doesn't mean anything to anybody. What you want to know is that it's SQL Server 2016 R2. And using that full version, we can try to track that down. If we don't find a distinct match, it might just use the first two numbers, the major number and the minor version number, and find life cycles that way. So it does, in other words, it's using an algorithm to try to find the best fit version life cycle. New TPM, we tell you about it. So TPM implementation requirements review. An implementation of new TPM, similar to the old, is you of course have to have your business application inventory. CMDB discovery needs to be in process. Server component software installation, the install records. So we need to be working with SAM. Software discovery needs to be in place, and the normalization needs to be running. Application services need to be associated to the business applications, and they need to be mapped to their infrastructure. And we can provide it. We're going to create a post up on the community with a script that can actually, I use a database view, and if we have time, I will demonstrate it for us. But we can use a database view or a CMDB query, query builder query, to go out and find out if we have anything that's viable for picking up information. So to install the new technology portfolio management, really all you have to do is install Enterprise Workspace. We released it in February. It was updated, improved in May. So the application portfolio management enterprise architecture workspace is our new next experience UI, workspace UI. Is it just for architects, enterprise architects? No, it's for multiple personas. And that's where we expose the new TPM stuff. And then there is a technology portfolio management plugin, but installing the first one will install the second one. The original TPM is installed when you activate APM. So the APM new technology flow, we kind of talked about it, but let's review. So you've got business application, your app service, you got a map to your CIs. We also have software product and version life cycles in place. The evaluation engine can be run manually. You can go to an business application record in EA Workspace, and there's a action called update TPM. That will launch it for just that business application, but now there's a scheduled job. So you identify the scheduled job, and it will go out and it processes every single business application. It looks to see if it has application services, fetches those, follows that pattern that we were talking about. We pick up software installations, we get the software discovery model for each software discovery model. And it's not every single software discovery model. There is a filter on it. We look for licensable or unknown. So there's a category on discovery models. What we don't want to pick up is patches and little updates and that sort of thing. So we're going to pick up things that should be key software. That category filter is configurable. There's a system property for it. For each valid software discovery model, we create a TPM discovered technology, which really captures the business application, the app service, what server we're processing, and then it has, when it gets created, we have basically, there's a business rule underneath that goes out, takes this information, creates a TPM technology lifecycle. That's where we cache the lifecycle and software version or hardware model version information. And essentially, these two records work as a pair. They're associated to software product, and the version life cycles actually should show hardware model in this as well for this to be correct. Really, we're concerned with software on this right now. So the original, for those that are working with original, starts with the business application. The IT owner clicks the Manage Technology Models. That owner is presented with a list of application services, and they right-click on it, the application service they want to process, and select Fetch Technology Models. It follows and grabs the infrastructure, basically finds the servers, software installation, calls the API, builds a list of suggestions, and then the IT owner, the app SME, whoever it is that's running this function, they actually select models in the suggested list and move them to the associated list. So is there data available to discover? How do you find out? So I mentioned a script or a means to do it. This is the way to determine, do I have something to discover? Is there something I can do? And as you'll see, and we'll demonstrate it when we're going to pull up a real system here in a minute, is I can create a database view. That's kind of my favorite way of doing it, but you can create a CMDB query that query builder query that will show you a lot of this. Can I find anything? Is there even anything out there? So, and it's really just following this path here. The application service, the servers, again, there's that table in between, the CI associations table. Give me the software installations. Do the software installations have a discovery model? Yes, they do. Okay, provided that they're filled in, that they're normalized, and I've got enough information to do something with it, either the original TPM or the new TPM is going to be able to give you some information back. One of the things, there's a lot of work that's happening. A lot of things have to line up. CMDB has to be lining up. Normalization has to be lining up. So that's how we do this evaluation. I call it a success evaluation. So I mentioned taking a look at a real system. Let's get in there and take a look at these things.
Hi, Mark. Molly here. Got a couple of questions out there, and I think this is actually a discovery question.
Sure.
How do we discover SaaS? And then, the mechanisms available.
So SaaS is really not discoverable. You're because you don't own the data center. In fact, the whole point of SaaS is it's transparent to you. It's just a service. You get a login and you log. It's just like if you go to ServiceNow, setting aside things like mid server and all that. You license ServiceNow, you install APM, and you go start putting data in it. But it's where it's hosted, what's going on with it behind the scenes. That's all transparent to you. So for SaaS, what we do is we truncate that data model. Yes, you have an application service, but we can't discover it. That's the main point. SaaS applications in all facets of APM are really down to manual entry. Now, there's some best practices in APM about how you manage your application inventory. Before you even stand up an application, you create that business application record. That's for another session. We've had some sessions on these kinds of things, but just real short, SaaS, you can't discover it. Hope that helps.
Thank you. And then I see that another one is how can TPM integrate with Technopedia? I did see out there that Technopedia has an API, but I believe that would be the integration into the tables, not necessarily TPM.
Yes. So those tables that we were talking about have to be populated. We populate them. There is a module called SAM Foundations that will give you just the tables, but they're empty. You could take your Technopedia data and create an integration. There's actually one on the store. You would have to work with your CMDB team because it does have some pretty profound effects on CMDB, but you could use that integration to populate the tables we just discussed. And I think we actually have some more about this later on, but the short is if you're using Technopedia or somebody else's system, you can populate those appropriate tables and let it auto discover. The thing that we're working towards with new TPM is a reduced complexity. Now, this is forward looking, but there's a reduced complexity where we want to be able to let you just create those two discovered technology and TPM lifecycle records. And you could do that from your Flexera, and you'd have all of the information there, and you just populate it. So there's some future facility, if you will, that's going to make this easier. It's also going to better serve people who are doing things manually. So what I'm bringing up here, go ahead, Mom.
No, I said, thanks, Mark. That's it.
All right. Thank you. So what I'm showing you right now, here we are. If you haven't seen it before, this is the enterprise architecture workspace. Front page, the idea of it, just a quick overview of it. Right up front, we give you insights. Hey, what's going on? What's going on with the application portfolio, just in general? How about the business portfolio? That's the capability stuff. Info portfolios, there's something I need to be aware of. By the way, each one of these little cards, these insights, these are completely configurable. So there's the set of 20 or so out of the box. But we're going to have sessions later this summer on how to configure these and build these. And there's some information up on Docs as well that we'll post. Technology portfolio. So this is where the new one manifests. Before I go too much further, I want to bring up the old one. Let's do a compare and contrast. So the old one, this is the old application portfolio management homepage, and the old technology portfolio. It's pretty good looking. It's got all these lines and these life cycle lines and all that kind of stuff. This is coming for the new TPM. Don't have it yet. I don't think it's going to release in August. There will be a new release in August, maybe November or the 1st of next year. But this kind of view is coming for the new TPM. But this is how the original TPM showed you the information. There are some lists that you go look at, but this was your primary interface. You can control if it's production or not. You can filter what you're looking at. You can show the integration with TRM, that technology reference model. That's your technology standards. We're talking about the technology bill of materials. What are you using? Technology standards, or what do you allow in your organization to be used? Again, look for a workshop on TRM coming to a venue near you soon. So this is the old view. This is the new view. Right now, this is very clean, this is right to the point. Where's my risk? Maybe I'm doing planning for next year. I want to know where I'm going to have risk for next year. What we do is we get right to the meat of it. And this will show us a list of the business applications. And you see, I've had it expanded here because I was playing with it. It shows me a list of the business applications that got an issue. So right here now, I got my list. I can go into these, I can drill into these and understand what technologies are giving me pain. By the way, right here, the very first thing we show is the date that is causing a issue to be raised. The date is calling out, hey, we got some obsolescence. And then you see over here, we color it. It's in the support dates back in 2013, et cetera. Now this is demo data, so it's not the best data in the world, but hopefully you get the idea. So here's the things that are causing me problems for each of my applications. I can now go to deal with them. I can create demands to go out and deal with them. One of the things that's coming is the ability to create a demand from this view. We don't yet have it. That is something that I do have up here. I can create a demand. I can actually even create a project to address something that's going on in this. So in this, as I said, in this view, we're seeing everything all in one place. Oh, and by the way, what I don't have in the old one, here's the server. So maybe I can export this list. I can provide operations with a list of servers that need to have SQL servers. So I could say, let's say maybe I filter this to just SQL Server. Then I say, okay, here's all the applications. Well, I can export this list, rearrange it a little bit, and here's all the servers that have SQL Server on it that need to be patched to the latest version. I put that into a demand. It becomes a change order. we have a change happens and there's a upgrade or whatever has to happen. It's really not that simple with something like SQL Server, but hopefully you get the idea. With this view, we're trying to keep things simple and to the point so that you can address the issue right away. Just real quick while we're on it, a couple more things about the EA workspace. We have needs attention. We have portfolio overview. This should just list how many apps do I have, how many business capabilities, filtering capabilities up here. Here's some health indicators. Again, these are configurable. And the other side of it is we have a dashboard. And again, it just shows you information about your inventory. These things are configurable. That's not the subject of today. And then finally, here is our overall view. Again, showing us that life cycle that's causing us an issue and all of the information about the end of life. What you see here differently is you see it on the timeline and you see these events. It's these little, hopefully you can see these, you have these little icons here at certain places. If I click on it, I can tell by the shape, or I can click on it, that's an end of support life cycle. And it tells me the version, that kind of stuff. This is an indicator of risk. You know, obviously red is bad. Let's get the red out. What I don't have here and cannot get from this older system is I don't know which server this was found on. And if I actually go look at this application, see, I have some Windows servers up here. There's a connects to, probably what I'm looking for is depends on. So I depend on these various Windows servers. I can go find them, but I still don't know what's installed on there. I'd have to go drill into it and look at the installed software list to see if this is one that I care about. So it's you can work with it, but it's kind of a pain. So we want to talk a little bit about how do you run this thing. So let's go back to our EA workspace. And by whatever means, down here, by the way, all of the workspaces kind of follow a particular pattern. We'll have these lists. We call this view portfolios. Trying to reduce this. There it goes. All right, so we have the list, business capabilities. So I can go to my list of business applications. Or I could go up here, I can drop down, I can click on business applications here. So I've got, the point is I got 50 different ways I can get to the business application. Once I get to a business application record, I can tell it to update my TPM data. Unlike the previous version, there's not a bunch of things I have to pick. I can just run it from right here. So if I know something's gone on with this application, by the way, I see my infrastructure relationships here. But if I know something's going on with this thing, I can force it to update. So I kick that off. It's going to tell me update is in process. By the way, and I don't know if I'll catch it in time. Yeah, it runs too fast. If you have one already running, this will come up and it'll tell you only one at a time. So it won't let you it won't let you run two at a time because we don't want to weigh the system down. So we keep them individual. So in order to see those runs, down here in the portfolio, under technology portfolio management, I can look at the logs table. What happens every time we run it, we create a log entry, tell you when it started, when it update, when it was completed, what its status is, percentage, etc. So when it's running on the whole system, you can go here and you see what's going on. These that show a particular application, those are showing me that I've run it directly from this business application. This one that is empty, that's one where I ran it via the job, and it caused it ran for everything. To get to the job, we go to schedule jobs. And by the way, I'm in this system as an admin, so I have admin privileges to do all of this. Some of this, if you'll have to work with your platform team. You're going to need a system of admins assistance to do some of this, or perhaps a developer on your team. Just depends upon how your organization manages access and works on your system. I just want to show you where the facilities are, and you can work out with who will actually do what. But this is an admin function, by the way. So we have scheduled jobs. Real easy, just look for TPM right here. And there we go. Populate TPM discovered technologies and life cycles. These other two, these are old for the original TPM, and they don't have any effect here. This is the one that matters. Populate technology, TPM discovered technologies and life cycles. And you see it's real simple. It's just going to populate something. So if I execute it now, off it went. If I go back over here to the workspace, refresh the logs, there it is. And I don't have enough data in this system that even that thing takes long. What did it do? It started at 9:59. It ran in less than a second, is what it's saying here. So it ran rather quickly. Performance. Remember, that was one of our criteria for building this thing. We want something that performs, and it uses a fairly simple query. So next part of it, again, what you see now, we believe is really quite useful and to the point. And by the way, you can look at it business apps, you can look at the app service level, or you can look at it right at the, show me the servers or show me the software products. If I want to turn it on its head and see it by software product, here I can get a list by product. Okay, I just want to know what Oracle DB server, what do I need to do with it? Who's using it? Where do we got a problem? So I have those capabilities. I can slice and dice, if you will. Again, it's about getting right to the point and being able to drive action to get risk out of your enterprise. We talked about the audit. So one of the things that would happen is we will do our best to get an exact match on a life cycle. But if we can't find it, and some of this is just bad data, so please ignore that. But here we'll have some that are not there. It needs to be verified, and the issue with it is we had a full version heuristic match. That means that the full version was close, and the full version is shown here, the 16.0.11.901, et cetera, et cetera. The addition matched, but we had to use a heuristic to find that. So we can go examine that particular life cycle and we can verify it. We can say, you know what, this isn't good enough. I'm gonna update this. So what I have to do is I would go into this and I can verify it, which means accept it. It means it also will be counted in our risk calculations, or I can reject it. If I reject this, it is no longer going to be counted in our risk. So what we're saying is this is an invalid life cycle. And really it becomes a call to go and deal with the technology life cycles to make sure that we've got the right thing. So Office 2016 Pro, we didn't like the version that we found. So that's what that amounts to. It's a process to be able to say, you know, we didn't get an exact life cycle. Here's something we need to do with it. So last thing I wanted to show you is how do I determine that I've got an issue, or how do I know if I'm going to get any kind of success? How can I find some, you know, the odds are that we're going to have success. So I'm going to show you some CMDB query builder. Again, this is a bit of an advanced topic, but this is a facility, and again, depending upon your teams, you may or may not have access to this. You may have to work with an admin, but this is how you go about determining if you're even going to be able to find anything, and if you want to commit some hours to doing it. So this is BA to software. I'm just going to give it a name. And I could include the business application. In this case, I'm going to, that's pretty straightforward. So business app, I'll start with it just in case you've never seen Query Builder. It'd be interesting to see. So I can do Query Builder. It's a drag and drop query interface. And I can say, hey, I want to hook these things up. So tell me about this relationship. So I know from my CSDM and APM training that the way a business application connects to an application service is via a consumed by query. So I'm going to save that. And I'm going to run it. And I got a pop-up. So if you get pop-up blocked, turn off this. I find it better just to turn off results in a new tab. I always do that. I forgot to do it. So let's do that again. So here I get my consumed by, all nice and neat. I don't really care about the business application because what I'm trying to find out, I know that I'm got business apps and app services aligned. I want to know where am I going to successfully find data for TPM. So I'm skipping hardware. Technically, we look for hardware. What we're really looking for is computer. And if you don't know about CMDB and classes, hardware, that's just like generically, everything's a hardware. Well, computer is a specific type of hardware. Server is a specific type of computer. Linux server, Unix server, Windows server are specific types of servers, but they're all servers. So all I need to do is capture a computer because I know that that's where the software install table is going to be located. So I hook these up, and by the relationship types, I just say any relationship type. You could use depends on, some people use runs on, I don't care. Now, I am following relationships here. So this is one case where we're looking at CI relationships. I'll show you in a moment how you get around that. So if I run this, tell it that's my new starting node. Here I get my computers, And what I can do is say, okay, yeah, this is giving me some information back. I save this, I create a schedule. I don't want to run daily. I'm just going to do it on demand. So I submit this. This is going to allow me to create a report. And my team is cringing now because I'm way out on the edge of a limb, because demoing stuff that's pretty far out there. So, okay, I got my app service. I really don't care about updated or updated by. I got an app service, and I want to see from the computer. Oh, hang on. We got to do one more thing. Let's go back. I need to add something. Non-CMDB tables. This is the trick. Sorry, I forgot what I was doing. I can go and add software installation right there. Look it up, look it up. Now save. Now run. And here you go. I mean, there's the output. Here's the software installation. Here's the server. It's hooked up to these services, etc. So the one thing that's kind of missing here, this works for old school, but it's not really using the it's using CI relationships. So if I didn't want to use CI relationships, one of the things that I can do is I can go to this application service, convert attached nodes to pattern. And that means it's going to try to find it by any way that it can. So I save that. I run it. And it wasn't happy. So I've exceeded the boundaries of what you can do for a demonstration. Hopefully you get the idea. I want to put this out there for you as a tool that you can use. I don't have the demonstration set up today for a database query. There will be a community post for it. So please look for it. And if you'll reach out, let me know. I can make sure that you're informed of how you set up a database view that will do this kind of evaluation. We're at 10 after. We got about another 20 minutes. What I want to do now is to go into Q&A mode. What questions do you have? What have we not covered? Is there anything that we need to go into? So Molly, Scott, guys, are there any questions that we can answer live, or if you have questions, post them to the Q&A, and Molly and Scott can present them.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Yeah, the Q&A is open. If anyone has any questions, please type, and we'll do our best to answer them.
And I'll just offer it up. If you have a question about APM in general, we could talk about it. We do really want to focus on TPM here, though. While we're waiting to see if there's any questions, one of the things I want to call out as far as future forward-looking features for this, you saw where we had the risks in the EA workspace. You can click on it, you can see the risk, you can action it, all of these kinds of things. We are also going to be building indicators for these risks. So that risk now, in current version of APM, there's a technical risk indicator, but it's an assessment. It's not wrong in a subjective evaluation of technical risk by your IT owner is not a bad thing. It's worth doing, but an objective evaluation of risk that includes this obsolescence type risk, fantastic. That's going to show up in one of our next versions.
Hey, Mark, we have a question here and for your demo today. What version were you using? I'm guessing Utah, but
I was running Utah. So the EA workspace and new TPM will run on Tokyo.
and for those who are in the other side, not in the Q&A, but in the chat, this is Scott. I dropped a bunch of links in there to reference information. One of those is the App Store. There's community in there. There's several kind of sites.
There's another question out there, Mark. It says, can you provide a bit more information on how the new way does not rely as much on the CMDB relationships?
Yes, let's go take a look at it.
Can you bring?
So, and let's start from business application. So there is some dependency. Can't get away from CSDM completely, but what happens is here I have a business application. That business application is consuming, that's its connection to application services. The new facility, the new TPM, it requires some form of application service. The old school would work with business services, what is now just the service table, CMDB CI service. You should not be using that table. So CMDB CI service, that is the root table for all services. We now have specific tables for business services, technical services, application services. Application services break down into 6 different types: mapped, calculated, tagged, dynamic, CI group, et cetera, et cetera. So you should be using some form of a correct, and in this case, I have calculated application services. So now, drilling in, and actually I'm not going to drill into the application service. We see down here, I can see from this attendance management, I'm related to this server via CI relationship. But what we do with the new one, we go to the application service. And let me get a better view. There is another table that we use. CMDB CI service. I typed it wrong. Oh, it's sorry, service CI associate. Sorry. Until it's Thursday. This is the table that service mapping populates. So if I go and look for my attendance management, that application service, here it is. And here's the pointer. So the CI relationships are ignored. We go to the application service, and then we go to this table here. And this is what we use to find the servers. In this view, yeah, it's not going to let me do it, but I could with a query, I can expand this, I can get the class of it. And if it's at least computer, if it's computer or servers, Linux server, Windows server, whatever it is, I identify the list of hardware servers that are going to carry the installations. That's how I get to it. We completely ignore the CI relationship table. So, and by the way, the presentation that we had today, if I go back in our presentation, this is a good enough page here. So if I go, this is the table we use, the right here. This table here, we look in that table to find the servers. And then we get the information there. So I hope that helps answer the question.
No other questions, Mark?
Okay. All right. I think there was a question, is there a getting started for APM that we can share here? We will see if we can't get that out for you actually while we're here. Let me see if I can pull it up. So if you go out to the community and look for Start Your APM Journey, you'll find it. But I'm going to post the link here if I can. And in the chat, I'm posting a getting started for APM. And it didn't do the link. There we go. There's a getting started link for APM. If there are no other questions, I will be happy to give everybody a little bit of time back. We really appreciate you joining us today and your participation. And we look forward to talking with you again. Please reach out if you got questions. And always remember that we have resources out there for you. In fact,
Mark, I was going to mention also you have some meetups coming up in July and August, maybe, I think.
Yep. Couple of here. We have SPM evangelists. If you want to get involved, you want your feedback to be heard. Even if you're not able to be a reference customer, you can still get involved. Reach out to us about the SPM Evangelist Customer Advocacy Program. And then finally, list of resources. Again, this deck will be available to you. This will give you some resources to go to. And as Scott said, we have meetups. Scott, can you help me with the dates?
Yes. One sec, this minute, I pull up. Just looking at it. So the first one meetup coming up is on July 18th. And you'll see those on the registration links. But July 18th is TPM. That's a meetup on TPM. And then the following one is on August 22nd, and that's EA Workspace.
Yep. So
the 18th
great one
and then the
coming up.
22nd.
And you can always go out to the community. I can't recommend enough. It is a lot of information out there, but the community is where we publish a lot of our scalable content, and all of the other users are out there helping with problems. It's just a great resource. So here's our next one you see here. but you can find the APM events. You can also find the strategic portfolio management events.